Good evening, church. Coming to you tonight on a Saturday evening. I've actually had some problems with this recording. I've tried to do it the last couple of nights and different things. I've got a new setup here. I've been trying to simplify things, and in that process, it's caused some issues with some of the equipment. But I believe that we've got everything working now. And you can let me know in the chat. I've got chat pulled up so that I can see those replies now, those comments. If something is not working, I know that there's been several times where I've recorded an entire message or broadcast, and it never the sound never quite worked out. So we're trying to simplify things and change the way we do things and get some better systems involved here. So I'm going to say, like I always say, we are streaming on Facebook and YouTube simultaneously. So just to let you know, I know last week there was some mention of sending us sending us a message through chat or Facebook chat or whatever, leaving a comment or a thumbs up. Either way you go, with the way our setup is now, we can see those. We can see the comments or the requests or whatever. We can see those live now. So whichever platform you decide to watch on, either Facebook or YouTube. And I'll show you at the end an easy way to find that. I'm still working on our website, but I will give you a glimpse of what that looks like. In case you don't or you've never been there. So it's kind of consolidates both of those channels and those sources to where you can kind of find everything in one spot. So I want to continue on. Last week we Brother Richard and Roger they were talking about prayer, and they kind of opened this up to allow anyone to make a comment, anyone to request for prayer. And I put in the comments, if you want an unspoken request, I've seen a lot of people do that before. And, even if we know what you need prayer about, we may not know how to pray for you in that regard. So, the way I look at it is, if you need prayer about something, and you don't want to make every bit of your issues or situation known, submit an unspoken request, and we'll intercede for you. God knows exactly where you're at, and the Holy Spirit knows exactly how to request that prayer for you. So we will lift you up regardless. So I think that's a very important thing, and I see churches shying away from prayer. Prayer has become more of a routine thing, or more of a something that you have to do before an event or a service or a meal, and it's not a conversation. It's not something that we can just come to God and talk to Him as a friend, and that's what He's wanting. Prayer is supposed to be that communion or that communication between God and man. So He wants a relationship with His creation, and so I believe that this ministry, and I believe that Brother Richard, he has a heart for prayer. I know Brother Roger, I know the whole family here that I know that we all have a heart for prayer, and when things come up in the middle of the day, we drop everything and we pray about it, because we don't have the answers. And a lot of times we'll try to do it in our own strength, and we'll find out that we just wear ourselves out. So I want to start out tonight. And like I said, if you have a request or anything, you put it in the chat, and I'll see it pop up. So I will respond to that. But I'm going to go ahead and share some scriptures this evening. I want to first bring up. Sorry, I had to do this a certain way to get this to work correctly. Starting in Matthew 21, verse 21, Jesus answered and said unto them, Verily I say unto you, if you have faith and doubt not, ye shall not only do this which is done to the fig tree, but also if ye shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. And all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive. Now, the reason I have these sections highlighted up here is because I want to pull this out. A lot, like I said, a lot of times we look at prayer as almost the least that we can do, or well, it doesn't require a lot of effort. But if you're praying the right way, you're going to wear the burden of of those prayers, of those things that you want to pray for. You're gonna know exactly what is I'm sorry, I'm having some issues with my screen, but you're going to know exactly that gravity that is going to affect you. So, like I said, praying is not something. It's the least that we can do. It's something that we can. It's the most that we can do. It's our offensive weapon against the enemy. It's our offensive weapon against bad reports. Those things that come against us and try to steal our joy, we stand against them in prayer, standing on the Word of God. So, I have these highlighted here because this is a very important thing. And it's if you have faith and doubt not. Well, I know there's been a lot of times where I've prayed about something, but in my heart I'm thinking, I don't see a way that this can go forth. I don't see a way that this can happen. In my mind, this logically cannot work. So, but I'm going to pray for it anyway. And I'm stepping out and sinking already, and this is the problem that we have is we don't have a trust that we can place in. We don't place our trust in God. If you sit down on a chair, do you sit on the edge? Are you afraid just illogically that it's not going to hold you up? I mean, do we test furniture like that? No, most times we walk into a room, see a chair, we sit down on it. We believe that it's going to hold us up. So if you have faith and doubt not, it is a key. And also in verse 22, believing, and all things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believing you shall receive. Now it's a very strong word there. That's a very important word, believing. And when we say believing, we're not talking about, well, yeah, I believe, I hope, like we have hope is a flimsy word now. I believe, it'll happen, but, just in case I'm going to prepare another way or whatever, and that just goes to show you how much trust you have in God and what He can do. So, we live in a fallen world. We can find the beauty that God designed into our world and appreciate its diverse makeup, but our present reality is still a fallen state. So it's tainted, it's corrupted by sin. We see these things happening in the headlines every day. We see all these things that are so negative, and the media is a good way of pulling out the negative and amplifying the negative so much. That's why there's been studies done that those who sit around and watch news or pay attention to nothing but news all day are more sick. They're physically sick because of what's being fed to them through media. It's been this way since man was kicked out of the garden. That wonderful picture of God's fellowship with man and in God's perfect world. Then the corruption of man's heart and exile of his intimate presence with God took place, all because of the temptation of the enemy. And the enemy will try to bring those things up that separates you from God, those things that clouds our minds, those things that takes our focus off of God. He'll try to bring those up and replay those in your mind. What about this? What about that? A Christian wouldn't do this, or a Christian wouldn't think like that. And tries to bring in these things that will take you down and bring you down. And ultimately, it's just to take your mind off of God, your focus off of Christ. The cross becomes fuzzy, and all these other things are more clear. All these little side tracks are more clear, and they start grabbing your attention. They start disrupting your focus on where it needs to be. Do you think that God wanted to bar mankind from the garden, from the Eden? He created us for relationships. He wants us. We're social beings. He wants that relationship with us. Praying is one of those ways of communicating with Him. Now, people will say, well, God spoke to me, or God said this to me, and sometimes it's in a dream, sometimes it's audibly, sometimes it's in prayer, when you're in prayer. Sometimes it's just in your daily life. You could be walking somewhere and something just hits you, and it's God speaking to you, or God warning you about something. I've seen several different methods and modes of how God has spoken to me. And but that requires that foundation of that relationship to be strong. It requires those lines of communication to be open in the first place. If we don't have those lines of communication open, we're not going to hear Him. We're going to think, okay, well, woe is me. I keep running into this same problem. What's going on? We have a natural inclination to care about those around us. It's written into the fabric of what man is. We have that social relationship. We want to reach out and create these relationships. That's a trait that God has put into us because we are created in His image. There's several things that we can look at in ourselves that's there because God is that way, because God wants that relationship. He wants those things. If you don't care about anyone but yourself, it's not an acceptable way to be. Unfortunately, there's a lot more acceptance of that today than there has been in the past. There's a bit of a mental issue going on, and if you break it right down, it's demonic, it's evil, it's spiritual, but it's evil. It's a spiritual warfare against people that are constantly just inwardly focused and inwardly thinking about themselves. Scientifically, this is known as this case of inward thinking and only care about yourself is narcissism. It's a way of putting yourself up on a platform or only caring about yourself, putting yourself before others, loving self more than your fellow neighbor, which is an exact twist. It's an exact opposite of what God said Christian love should be. Is caring about your neighbor, showing that love that God has for you, and expressing that to them. This is all about relationships. I once had a teacher who would come into the room and he would say, life is all about relationships. And he would have his own little opinion about certain things in certain parts of life, but he was right. It's all about relationships. Christianity is not a club. It's not a social event. It's all about relationships with those around us, relationships with God, with just walking in prayer throughout the day is something that's so is so important. We have to be feeding our spiritual man, or we're feeding something else. So ever since the fall, we've had this pesky little thing warring with our attempts to do the right thing, to have those lines of communication, and in that relationship with God, and that little thing is our will. God lets us have that free will. He's given us that free will, but that will is what rises up within us and wanting to do its own thing, wanting to express itself, wanting to complicate things, wanting to create relationships in our own image and what we think that they should be. I say all that to set up this main idea that I want to talk about, and this is the point of this. The relationships, the praying, the talking with God, where's our faith at? How much faith do we have? And that's the question. Christ said, "O ye of little faith." Whenever we see in the Bible an instruction or command on how to pray, there's normally a qualifier attached. It's a small, sometimes only one word, but it's what all prayer hinges on. And and I want to bring up this next. It's the same verse, but I want to highlight. Actually, no, it's not the same verse. It's in this. It's in Mark, actually. So, going on to Mark, therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you shall have them. Now notice that I've put the Greek up here because I wanted to pull this out. Brother Richard's always talking about this, this fact of this ability to receive what God has given to us, and the reason that that's important is, and that word lambano means that to be able to receive what is given to you, not just to blandly receive, but something has been given to us, something is granted to us, and to be able to receive that is the ability to take hold, and we have to take hold of that. So those things that God has given to us, we have to boldly take hold of those things. I think there was an example given last week about someone giving somebody $1 million. That person's going to grab that money, is going to secure that money. If we don't secure what God has given to us, we're not taking hold of anything. We can't walk in the power because we don't know it. We don't realize that into our own lives. So we have to be careful about just blanketly saying I believe or yeah, that's for me. No, this is an exciting absolute fact that God has given us those things, that power that we need to stand on throughout our walk. So in John 15, verse 7, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. Notice that this is relationship. This is talking about relationship. If you abide in me and my words abide in you. Now, I don't know how many people can relate to this, but if you're in a close relationship, say a marriage, which we are in a marriage. If we are Christians, if we're born again, we're in a marriage with Christ. If you're in a marriage, you know exactly how your spouse is going to react or going to take in and process information. We become so intertwined that we can know that person's step before they take it. This is what he's talking about. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. That relationship is so intimate that those words are going to be in there. You're in your heart. Those words are going to be life to your soul. These speak of a full surrender, and that's what it requires: a full surrender to God and His will. The faith that He is in control of whatever situation has to be fully committed. Then we must be firmly planted in that faith. We have to walk in it. We can't just say yes, I have faith, or yes, I believe. We have to walk that out in our day. We have to take control of that, take hold of that faith. That faith has to be ours. We have to possess it. We have to possess those things. So what if, and people will say, what if God doesn't answer my prayer? What if I look, what if I look and God just doesn't answer it? And I've seen this question a lot of times. Well, I prayed about this, but it's not, there's nothing happening, or I don't see any effect, or I don't see anything coming of it, and most times it's because we're expecting certain things to happen in our time. We have our own time frame, we have our own logical explanations for things, and we expect those things to happen in our time, in the time frame that we have set for it. So I think that's part of the issue. That's part of the issue that we have is trying to put God into a box, trying to tell, okay, well, if He doesn't do it by this date, then all is lost. You remember that if a couple of weeks ago I was talking about the children of Israel in the wilderness running from the Egyptian army. Don't you think that there was at some point thinking, well, if God would have wanted to save us, He would have led us in a way that did not have these mountains on either side and the Red Sea in front of us? Why are we in this position? Don't you think that there were questions about that? Don't you think that there was murmuring, there was complaining? And we have the same issues. We walk in our life, we see a certain situation, and we walk in and it looks like a dead end. We're like, why did God leave me here? Why am I here? Why am I stuck here? And then, not in our time, but in his time, He makes sense of it. I've been in several situations where that happened before. And I'm not going to share any names, but like I said, we pray for our friends, our family, anything that's going on. And I remember one time in particular, there was this has been several years ago, maybe a decade ago or so. But there was somebody that was having an issue. They were coming up against a hard deadline, And they didn't see a way out. They didn't see a way of completing this project before this hard deadline. And this was going to cost everything. This was going to cost them to repeat certain things and try to go through this program again and try, there was going to be a lot of financial burden associated with this. And we just sat there and we prayed. I remember this being like a 2-hour thing in the car. We had food in the car, and we stopped and dropped everything and we prayed, and somehow it worked out. We don't know. I don't know, but somehow it worked out. Because the next report that we got was a very positive report. Everything worked out. Everything went how it needed to go. And I thought, we have such an easy time creating these monsters and building these mountains out of molehills, and we have such a hard time with just grasping and holding this faith. So we need to be careful about that. I know that that's something that everybody deals with. That's something that I deal with at times, because our faith is small as a mustard seed sometimes, but we have to stand on that. God will grow that mustard seed beyond our imagination, beyond anything that we think possible. So we have to stand on that faith, as small as it is. Step out. I mean, who thought that Peter would be able to walk on water? But he stepped out of the boat. He didn't logically have an explanation of why he would be able to do that, but he stepped out of the boat and he did stand and walk on water until those waves of doubt overtook him. So going on to Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1, this is in the Amplified. Now faith is the assurance. I always love this. I love bringing this out in the Amplified. Faith is the assurance, the title deed and confirmation of things hoped for, divinely guaranteed. Now, let's just stop and reassess our word hope here. That's why I love the Amplified, because it brings back that strength of the word hope. Hope here is talking about an idea of being divinely guaranteed. Now, church, that's not something flimsy. Hope here is something that's guaranteed by God. And the evidence of things not seen, the conviction of their reality. Faith comprehends as fact what cannot be experienced by the physical senses. Now, this is kind of showing what faith is. Faith is the assurance. It is the confirmation, the title deed. A lot of these things are legal terminology, because this is exactly what we need to walk in this. This is legally binding. A lot of us, we forget that. We forget that this is a legally binding thing. And going on a few verses down, but without faith it is impossible to walk with God and please Him. For whoever comes near to God must necessarily believe that God exists and that He rewards those who earnestly and diligently seek Him. Now, I've got this highlighted here. Without faith, it's impossible to walk with God. Now, well, I've got faith, and I've got faith, and I accept that He's given me grace and mercy, and in this, but without being able to just walk in that faith, notice it says it's impossible to walk with God and please Him. This is a daily thing. It's not just a one time. One time I got saved, so once a sinner, I have a date when I got saved, and that's what I cling to. This needs to be an everyday thing. This every day needs to be our salvation, our day of salvation. Deuteronomy, this is also in the Amplified chapter 7, verse 7. The Lord did not love you and choose you because you were greater in number than any of the other peoples, for you were the fewest of all peoples, but because the Lord loves you and is keeping the oath which He swore to your fathers, the Lord has brought you out with a mighty hand and brought you from the house of slavery in the hand of Pharaoh the king of Egypt. Therefore, know without any doubt and understanding, and understand that the Lord your God, He is God, the faithful God, who is keeping His covenant and His steadfast loving kindness to a thousand generations with those who love Him and keep His commandments. Now, people will say, "Well, that's the Old Testament. Look, that's talking about Israel and how there were fewer in population, the other tribes and other nations." But it sums it up here and talks about 1,000 generations that He's made this covenant, this promise to, and so we are counted among that. We are counted among those who He has made a promise. He's never changed. God cannot change. He is immutable. His characteristics are immutable. He can never change. So this is a promise made throughout the generations, throughout the millennia, to whoever takes hold of that free gift of salvation. It's a promise for you, for me, anybody. For the Israelis walking through the desert, it's a promise for those who call out to Him and walk with Him. God is a God of integrity, and His promises never fade. His nature doesn't allow it. Doesn't allow for those promises to fade or His characteristics to change. He is immutable. In Mark, going back to Mark in chapter 9, verse 21, and he asked his father, "How long is it ago since this came unto him?" And he said, "Of a child, and oft times it hath cast him into the fire and into the waves to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us." Now, hear the desperation in this man's voice. If you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Jesus comes back and says, "If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth." So he's saying here, look, this is not if I can't do it. It's your belief. It's your faith in me doing it. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Lord, I believe, help thine mine unbelief." And so I find this interesting because he puts it on Christ. He says, "Hey, if you can do anything, please help me. Please help my child." And then Jesus turns around and said, "If I can do anything, if you believe that I can do anything, I can do those things." He puts it back on Him. So that's the important thing here. We have a part to play in this. We have a taking a hold of those things that He's given to us and standing on those promises. We can't expect someone else to stand on those promises for us. It's got to be a personal relationship. Going on, verse 25, when Jesus saw that the people came running together, He rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, "Thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, and enter no more into him." And the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, and so much so that many said, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. So, Jesus often used these miracles that He performed as a way to teach multitudes of people. And Jesus saw. There's got to be a reason why it points this out, that Jesus saw the people came running together to see what was going on. Then He rebuked the foul spirit and cast him out. So it was a walking, living, breathing testimony to those and to the man who has the faith to believe in what Christ can do for him. And so we are all walking testimonies. We're all those. We're all who can walk throughout our day and be a living, breathing testimony into what Christ can do for us in our lives today. If we just believe, if we just have a hope, have that assurance that He is going to take care of us, or going to do those things. God has called us out to be a peculiar people, or particularly peculiar people. He requires from us all that we have so that He can give us all that He has for us. And I think a lot of times we fail to realize the magnitude of that. Everything that we ask shall be given unto us if we have faith that God can do it. Not can. There is no place for can in prayer. Can you, or if you can, could you? Just like this man had, if you can do anything, if there's anything that you can do, And he turned that around and said, I can do anything. You have to believe that I can. An absolute faith is required for these promises. No hint of wavering is tolerated. And that sounds very strict. That sounds very, very like, it's got to be this way or no way, But this relationship has to be an absolute relationship. God deals in a lot of absolutes. There's no room for a wavering or a questioning of what God can do for us. I want to end with this last verse in Genesis chapter 5, verse 21. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. Enoch walked in habitual fellowship with God 300 years after the birth of Methuselah and had other sons and daughters. So notice I've highlighted this here, in habitual fellowship. Of course, this is the Amplified bringing this out again. That fellowship has to be something that is not forced. It has to be something, that relationship has to be something that is, okay, like I was using an example earlier of that close person that you have in your life, be it a spouse, be it your family, whatever. You walk in that relationship with them, and you don't have to force it. It's not something that's forced. It's a habitual relationship. It's a fellowship. So it's not a forced thing. It's something that comes really easy. It comes as a natural thing, or a spiritual walk. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and in reverent fear and obedience Enoch walked with God. Notice it reinforces this. It's not just well, he prayed to God. In reverent fear and obedience Enoch walked with God. He had that habitual fellowship, and he was not found among men because God took him away to be home with him. Now, Enoch famously was someone who walked into eternity with God and didn't go through death, but just became so close and intertwined with God that he just walked into eternity with him. And I every time that I hear that, I think how much further below that bar are we? In my own life, I feel like fear tries to come in and grip me every day. Anxiety comes in and tries to raise its ugly head and tries to control my responses. Whenever that happens, I've learned more and more that it's really an issue of prayer. We have to take it to the Lord in prayer. It's not just a song. It's not just a hymn. It's a daily walk. Take it to the Lord in prayer. That's just we just need to cry out to the Lord. Lord, help our unbelief. And that's a daily thing. That's a daily surrender to Him. Help my unbelief. Help me believe more. Help me have more of a faith. Help me have a greater magnitude of that trust in you and what you can do and what you're going to do for me. So, I'm going to end there. This could be so much of a longer message here about prayer. Prayer is one of those things. It's the most important thing because this is how we communicate with God. This is how we show our walk, our experience God on a daily basis. That we bring everything that we have problems with, or have an issue with, or have questions about, or a fear about. We bring it in prayer to God and grow that relationship through those communications with Him. So, I want to leave there. I am going to show you, though. Once this stream ends, I've heard some people sometimes they're like, well, I want to watch it, but I didn't catch it while it was live, and Facebook never showed it up again, and I don't know how to search it. And there's so many different churches that go under the same name, and I understand that, and it's been a frustration sometimes when I've tried to search it out, and so it's right here. All you got to do is type this in. But I understand that it is difficult to find those things because the internet is so massive. So years ago, I'm going to show the website that we have. And this has changed over the years, but years ago I did create this website so that it would automatically upload our sermons when we were at the physical church location in town. Now those have kind of ended, and what we do now is the live streams every week. And I've got Facebook live streams, and this is kind of the way it is now. This is going to be subject to change because I'm going to put links to our Facebook page and YouTube page and that kind of thing here. If you want to look for a past live stream, now the website is truevinechristianfellowship.com. It's a long website name, but it was what we started out with about 15 years ago or so. So this is how we get to it. And when you first get there, you come up, and Facebook live streams is where it lands, because that's our newest content. Now, Facebook has this policy where after 30 days, these will start to fall off. Notice that the first one that Brother Richard did about a month and a half ago is not up here anymore. So those will start to delete from here, and until I can get those re-uploaded, you can go to sermons, which is basically the YouTube. You got Facebook, and then you got the sermons, which is basically the YouTube channel. If you go to sermons, it will load all of them. Notice that Brother Richard's first one about a month and a half ago is here, or a little over a month ago, and then it continues on. It's even got the most updated one here that's not completed yet, so it will lead you to the live stream that is currently in progress if you go here. So if you want to look at those and use this as a resource to get to these, we also have a long history of the church sermons that we did several years ago on here as well. I thought there would be a way that I could separate these out, but it may be something that happens in the future. But that's where we keep these things, and we also have Return to the Faith, which used to be a different website that Brother Tom did. Brother Tom actually started this live stream about 4 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago now. But he did a lesson series on called Return to the Faith, and talking about the true faith. So that's the website. If you go to it, you can search through it. You can find everything that we've ever put up there on one of those pages. So I encourage you to take advantage of that resource, and join in the chat if you want to catch these live streams. I know that it's hard when it's done on an alternate night, such as tonight, but I've had so many problems with this. Hopefully that won't be the case in the future, and we will be able to respond to these any comments that are made, or anything that's put up here live, and we will, when we say that we will pray, we'll stop and pray. We'll stop and pray for you, because, like I said, that is the offensive weapon that we have been given, is prayer and the Word of God, and standing on that Word and knowing how to wield that sword. That doesn't mean that we'll file that prayer away and we'll pray for it. Sure, we'll pray for you later, but in the wilderness of Madagascar, there was a preacher that had went over from America, and he encountered spiritual warfare like he had never seen before. Anytime anything arose, the whole congregation came together, surrounded, and laid hands and prayed over people that were having issues, or people that came in demon possessed. Everybody was exorcising this demon. Everybody knew how to wield the sword of prayer and the sword of the Word, and how to stand on that Word. So that's what we need to be as a church. That's the reality that we need to grasp when we're talking about spiritual warfare. It's not just a cliche term. This is a real life thing that happens daily. So we need to be prepared and dressed up in armor. So until next week, I will leave you there. I hope you have a wonderful week, this coming week, and we just pray that you have that you have a wonderful week, but you also take hold of what God has given to you in these situations. And we all have them. We all walk through life, and we come in, we see these hurdles, but church needs to learn to take that power that God has given to us and walk in it. So, lambano, receive it. So I will leave you there, and may God bless you and keep you this week, and may He walk before you, go before you, and give you wisdom.